What is good? Osiris here, stuck in the middle. Thanks for joining. You're looking at a picture of Brian Flores. We're going to talk about a story that is a bombshell that hit the NFL yesterday. Former head coach Brian Flores sued the NFL and three teams, Dolphins, Broncos, and Giants. I'm going to highlight his relationship with the Giants. This is a lot to talk about. I'm going to narrow in on him and the Giants. This is about race, discrimination allegedly by him, and Bill Belichick.
You will experience the full power of the dark side.
Have you ever accidentally text the wrong person? This is what happened here, allegedly. Bill Belichick says it was an accident. Some conspiracy theorists say it wasn't. Who knows? But he did say he texted the wrong person, and that's what caused this whole thing to explode. I can imagine him looking at his contact list because the two people are Brian Flores and Brian Daboll. So they would probably be pretty close potentially on his contact list if you're doing it by first name. Before I get into all of that, I appreciate all the support in the channel. I'm going to be going live at 4:45 p.m. today, Mountain Time. I'm going to be talking about Lily Tang Williams, and I think she is a activist, a fighter for liberty. I'm going to talk about her and many other topics. I do upload, if you missed the lives, I do upload them on the Clips channel. The reason why I do that is because I just want every upload on this channel to be a new upload. I like Officer Tatum, and I know on his main channel, I have my notifications on because if he uploads something there, it's all new. I subscribe to his Clips channel. I don't put the notifications on, so I'll just go over there if I want to kind of go back through the catalog. This is Brian Daboll. So let's get into the story. So you see, we're already getting into race. There is a rule in the NFL that this is all surrounding. And I'm going to give you the bullet points of this rule. The basic idea of this rule is to force NFL teams when they have a head coach opening that they have to interview, not hire, they have to interview at least two diverse candidates from whatever list they have that includes black people. Clubs must conduct an in-person interview with at least one external minority candidate. Clubs must continue to consider multiple diverse candidates. Clubs must maintain complete records and provide them to the league upon commissioner's request. That will fall under all of this right here. We're going to get into what Brian Flores is alleging. If the final decision maker is involved from the beginning of the hiring process, they must be involved through the conclusion of the process. So you can't swap people out and say, oh, we interviewed one and then swap out who was in charge of the process, and then the next person doesn't have to interview. So you don't get around the rule. Here's how it all happened. A mistaken text. The head coach of the Patriots, Bill Belichick, knows both. He has worked with both Brian Flores and Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll is the white coach. Brian Flores is the black coach. Bill Belichick texts who he thinks is the white coach, Brian Daboll. And he's basically, I'm just going to paraphrase this stuff. He's basically saying, congratulations, I think you're going to get the Giants job. I think you got the Giants job. But he wasn't texting Brian Daboll, he was texting Brian Flores. So Brian Flores hadn't interviewed with the Giants yet. So Brian Flores is like, why do I have an interview scheduled if the Giants already know who they're hiring via the text from Bill Belichick? Oops. Flores, who is black, filed a lawsuit on Tuesday against the NFL alleging racial discrimination. Wait for it. In his complaint, he wrote that the NFL operated much like a plantation. Ridiculous. But you can bring up concerns about the NFL, but to compare it to a plantation is just disrespectful beyond means. It's Colin Kaepernick level of stupid. I'm not going to talk about his overall lawsuit. I'm going to narrow this right in. The funny thing is, no one would have known about this if it weren't for the Bill Belichick text, at least this angle of it. Here's the concern that people have. This is a quote from the black coach, Brian Flores. The NFL has 32 owners, none of whom are black. They profit substantially from the labor of NFL players, 70% of whom are black. Only one current head coach of the Pitt, is black. That's Mike Tomlin of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's legitimate if you have a body of workers who are 70% black and one head coach who's black, not to call racism, because racism means you know what's in somebody's head. They have showed you what's inside their head. What I think is fair is to ask why. Is there a reason? Can we find, maybe we don't know why. Whatever the case is, it's fair to ask. The big thing is you can ask a question. Why? I would want to know if I'm one of those owners in the NFL and somebody asks me, hey, you've got 70% black players, you've got one head coach. Have you looked into it? Do you know why this is the case? I'm not alleging racism or anything. What thoughts do you have on it? I need to have some thoughts on it. Absolutely. So here's the part I want to drill in on. Brian Flores alleged that his interview for the head coaching job with the New York Giants was only so that the franchise could fulfill that Rooney Rule I talked about. This comes up a lot. Black head coaches get the interview, but they still wonder, did I only get the interview because of the Rooney Rule? And he's saying that it is, and I know it is, because of the text from Bill Belichick. The Giants responded. They said Brian Flores was a serious candidate. We hired the head coach we felt was most qualified. Not surprising, but I wanted to get that in here. Let me first talk about the Rooney Rule. If I am not a person that looks at identity first like some of these other people do. There's no right or wrong. They can have their feeling. I can have mine. But if I own a league or I'm one of the owners in a league, so the league is ran by 32 owners. Roger Goodell is not the power mover or maker. He's just the voice for the 32. The 32 tell Roger Goodell what to do. So if I'm one of those owners and I'm in an industry where many of my employees are identity based, you have to address that. I can say I'm non-identity based all I want in my personal life, but if I own a business where my employees are all identity based, that's the business I'm in. If you don't like that, get into another business. So they came up with the Rooney Rule, it was around circa 2003, to address the concerns from the public and the players and people in the league. So people have this concern. How do you address it? If you don't like the Rooney Rule, give me a better rule. And where we're heading with this is the Joe Biden rule, the critical theory rule. No one said that, but I don't know what rule you could have other than, you know what, you're going to have to hire a diverse candidate. That's where this pressure is heading. If Brian Flores wins his lawsuit, that's probably where it will go, and that's illegal. That should be illegal, but I don't know. That's where we're going. The president's hiring the Supreme Court justice based on that. So that sets the tone for the whole country, especially if the court system is going to rule in the favor of these alleged racism these alleged racist actions with no proof of what's inside someone's head and heart. I personally would not want the Rooney Rule, but if I'm in a business where my employees are identity based, I think it's a fair response to that. The reason why they did the Rooney Rule is because they're saying we want to make sure you have an opportunity. That's all qualified people ask for, is an opportunity. Let me get in front of you. The part that's the challenge is people typically hire those they know. People they know their work well, friends, people they are familiar with. So you actually need to get more intermingling with high quality candidates of any color with the owners for you to get an edge or to have a chance at that job. But at worst case, they say, hey, you get a chance. Here's my opinion. So Brian Flores, who said he grew up in public housing, so he can overcome to get to this point. I would challenge him and anyone else, and this is how I'd raise my children. So what? Let's say hypothetically, the Giants already knew they were going to hire Daboll. They maybe didn't give him a contract, but in their head, they're like, that's our dude. That happens a lot. That's human nature. You could go into an interview process and think these are the front runners. Or they may have already said, we're going to hire him in their head, never putting it on paper. I'm still taking the interview. And my goal is going to be to get into that interview and show them why they should have hired me. I'm the obvious choice, and shine the best I can, because that owner, they could talk to another owner. They have another owner that's a friend, and they're like, we hired Brian Daboll, but Brian Flores blew us away. We almost changed our mind. So go holler at him. I think that's what happened with Mike Tomlin, actually. Mike Tomlin got an interview with the Steelers, and other owners that knew Mike Tomlin were like, we like him a lot. And he turned out to be a great coach. I'm going to end with this. I want to challenge people who live in this world of critical theory. Like, if I think something is racist, that's enough evidence for it to be racist. If I think something is operating like a plantation, that's enough. That's critical theory. The short term for it is his story or her story. Whatever my story is true. What I would challenge you is that I would say, for me, I want to feel comfortable. And I do I feel like I'm at that point now because I've worked through it in my life. We have to be, I think I have to be comfortable in the space not knowing. Catching the cab is the classic example. A lot of people say, well, I'm black. I hailed a cab. The cab kept on going. It was because I was black. But that's not true. It's not factually true. We don't know. It could have been because you were black and that person was racist. Or it could have been because of any other multitude of issues. Unless you have evidence, you don't know. This happened with George Floyd. We had a white police officer on top of a black man, and that started a movement on race. There was zero evidence in the trial presented that Derek Chauvin had any type of racial animus in his mind. We don't know either way. He could have, or he might not have. And that's a world. See, critical theory feeds off the fear that you might have. I think it's fair to wonder, it's just human nature. You wonder, wow, did he do that because the guy was black? Or did the cab skip me because I was black? I think that's fair. That's human nature. But my challenge to you is to be able to live in a world where I know that I'm thinking that might be the case, but I have no proof and I don't know. And I can go on with my life. And I'll go in that interview. If I get an interview, that's a chance for me to shine. I don't care who you just hired. You want to talk to me about a job? That's an opportunity. What they're trying to get to is racism in their favor. Let me know what you think. Take care.